The church fell silent as gasps rippled through the pews. Ebony Harris stood frozen at the altar in her ivory wedding gown, the fabric stretching across her generous curves, her dark skin glowing against the white lace. Her fiancé Marcus had just turned his back on her, his voice carrying across the sanctuary with cruel clarity. "I can't do this. Look at her. I thought she'd lose the weight." The guests erupted in shocked whispers. Ebony's hands trembled as she clutched her bouquet, tears burning behind her eyes, humiliation flooding through every fiber of her being. She wanted to run, to disappear, to wake up from this nightmare. Then a voice cut through the chaos, deep, accented, absolute. "I will." Every head turned. A man in an impeccable black suit stood in the back of the church, his Korean features striking and severe, dark eyes fixed on Ebony with an intensity that made her breath catch. Baek Si-woo, the most feared name in Chicago's underworld, walked down the aisle with the confidence of a man who owned everything he surveyed. "I will marry her," he repeated, his gaze never leaving Ebony's stunned face. Right now, 3 months earlier, Ebony Harris wiped down the counter at Celestial Events, the upscale wedding planning company where she worked as an assistant coordinator. Her natural hair was pulled back in a neat bun, her curves accentuated by a simple black dress that she'd chosen for its professional appearance. At 28, she'd learned to carry herself with quiet dignity, despite the whispers that followed her in rooms designed for women half her size. "Ebony, I need you to handle the Kim consultation," her boss Veronica called out, barely looking up from her computer. "The 3 p.m. appointment, high-profile client, very particular. Don't mess it up." Ebony bit back the response that rose to her lips. She never messed up. She was the one who saved disasters, who remembered every detail, who worked twice as hard for half the recognition. "Of course, I'll review the file now." The Kim file was surprisingly sparse. Corporate event, budget apparently unlimited, client requesting absolute discretion. Ebony frowned at the vague details, but prepared the conference room with her usual attention to detail. Fresh flowers, water glasses positioned perfectly, lighting adjusted to be flattering, but not dim. At 2:58 p.m., the lobby doors opened. Ebony glanced up from her tablet and felt her breath catch. The man who entered commanded attention effortlessly. Korean, mid-30s, with sharp cheekbones and darker eyes that seemed to catalogue everything in a single sweep. His black suit was custom-tailored, probably worth more than her monthly rent. 3 men in similar attire flanked him, their postures screaming security detail. "Mr. Kim," Ebony approached with her professional smile, extending her hand. "I'm Ebony Harris. I'll be coordinating your event today." His gaze traveled over her slowly, not lecherously, but with a thoroughness that made her skin warm. When his hand enfolded hers, his grip was firm, warm. "Actually," he said, his accent barely noticeable, "it's Baek Si-woo." The Kim name was a formality. Something in his tone made Ebony's instincts prickle with warning. She'd grown up in Chicago's South Side, in a neighborhood where you learned to read danger like a second language. This man was dangerous, but her bills didn't care about her instincts. "Mr. Beck," she corrected smoothly. "Please, have a seat in the conference room. Can I get you anything? Coffee, tea, water?" "Water is fine." He followed her, his security remaining in the lobby. Once the door closed, his entire demeanor shifted, relaxing incrementally. "You're wondering why someone like me needs a wedding planner?" Ebony settled across from him, keeping her expression neutral. "I'm here to provide whatever service you need, Mr. Beck. Your reasons are your own." A smile ghosted across his lips. "Diplomatic, I appreciate that." He leaned back, studying her with those penetrating eyes. "I need to plan a wedding, but not a real one." Ebony's pen paused over her notepad. "I'm not sure I understand." "A business arrangement," he clarified. "It needs to appear legitimate. Venue, flowers, guests, everything perfect. But the bride and groom won't actually be invested in the marriage." This was not the strangest request Ebony had ever received in the wedding industry, but it was close. "Mr. Beck, I should mention that Celestial Events has a policy. I'll pay triple your highest package," he interrupted, "plus a personal bonus for you. 6 figures. Ebony's heart stuttered. 6 figures. That was her student loans paid off. That was her grandmother's medical bills handled. That was security she'd never known, but her grandmother had raised her with principles that didn't bend easily. "Why me?" she asked, instead of accepting immediately. Because you look at me like I'm a man, not a monster, Beck said quietly. And because you need the money enough to consider it, but you have enough integrity to hesitate. That's rare. Ebony met his gaze directly. Growing up as a plus-size black girl in a world that often pretended she was invisible had taught her to recognize when someone actually saw her. This man saw her. It was unsettling and oddly intoxicating. I'll need details, she said finally. Complete transparency about what I'm walking into. Beck's smile widened, revealing perfect teeth. You're walking into a business merger, two organizations coming together. The wedding is symbolic, a public declaration of alliance. Nothing illegal will happen at the event itself. The careful phrasing told Ebony everything he wasn't saying. Organizations, alliance. The expensive suits and security detail suddenly made perfect sense. She was sitting across from a criminal, probably a very powerful one. I need 24 hours to think about it, Ebony said, standing. Her hands were steady, her voice calm, but her mind raced. Beck stood as well, pulling a card from his inner jacket pocket. 24 hours. Call this number. He paused at the door, turning back. Miss Harris, I meant what I said. You're different. That's why I chose this company, after I saw you coordinating the charitable gala last month. He'd been watching her. The thought should have terrified Ebony, but instead, it sent a strange thrill down her spine. You were at the gala. I'm always watching, Miss Harris. It's how I stay alive. With that unsettling statement, Beck Si-woo left, his security team falling into formation around him like planets orbiting a dark star. Ebony sat back down, her legs suddenly unsteady. She looked at the card in her hand. Heavy stock, embossed lettering, a single phone number. No name, no business affiliation. She should throw it away. She should report this to someone. But instead she tucked it into her purse, already knowing what her answer would be. That evening, Ebony's phone rang as she stirred a pot of her grandmother's jambalaya recipe. The caller ID showed her fiancé Marcus. She smiled, answering on speaker. Hey, baby. You coming over for dinner? Can't tonight, babe. Working late again. This promotion is killing me. Ebony frowned at the pot, something in his tone striking her as off. Marcus, you've worked late every night this week. Is everything okay? Everything's fine, just stressed. Look, I gotta go. Love you. He hung up before she could respond. Ebony stared at her phone, unease settling in her stomach. Marcus had been distant lately, their wedding plans, the ones she was paying for herself, despite his promises, feeling more like a burden he tolerated than a future he anticipated. When she looked down at herself, at her thick thighs and round belly, she felt the familiar whisper of insecurity. Was she too much? Not enough? Both? Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. BTW, can you maybe try that diet again? Wedding's in 3 months. The message landed like a slap. Ebony deleted it, her jaw clenched, blinking back tears that felt equal parts hurt and anger. She pulled Beck Si-woo's card from her purse and stared at it for a long moment. Then she made the call. The address Beck's associate gave Ebony led to a restaurant in a part of Chicago's Koreatown she'd never visited. The exterior was understated, but the moment she stepped inside, she understood this was no ordinary establishment. The hostess recognized Beck's name instantly and led her through the main dining room to a private area in the back. Beck stood when she entered, gesturing to the seat across from him. The table was set for 2, several dishes already arranged between them. I took the liberty of ordering. Have you had Korean food before? A few times, Ebony admitted, settling into her chair. The rich aromas made her stomach growl despite her nerves. But nothing that smells this good. This is bulgogi, kimchi, japchae, and bibimbap, Beck explained, pointing to each dish. Please eat. We can discuss business after. Ebony hesitated, then filled her plate. The first bite of bulgogi melted on her tongue, the flavors complex and perfectly balanced. She couldn't suppress a small sound of appreciation. Beck watched her with something that looked almost like satisfaction. You're not one of those women who pretends not to eat. I stopped pretending to be something I'm not a long time ago, Ebony said, meeting his gaze. Life's too short to starve yourself for people who don't appreciate you anyway. Wise philosophy. Beck served her more kimchi. Your fiancé, he appreciates you. The question was intrusive, but Ebony found herself answering honestly. He wants me to lose weight before the wedding. Texts me diet suggestions. Mentions my size in front of his friends like it's a joke we both share. She paused, surprised at her own candor. I don't know why I'm telling you this. Because I asked, and because you know I won't judge you. Beck's expression was unreadable. He's a fool. Ebony's breath caught. You don't know me. I know you're brilliant at your job. I know you work harder than anyone else in that office. I know you carry yourself with dignity even when people dismiss you. Beck leaned forward slightly. And I know you deserve better than a man who sees you as a project to fix, rather than a woman to cherish. The words sank into Ebony's chest, settling somewhere deep and painful. She blinked rapidly, refusing to cry in front of this dangerous stranger, who somehow saw her more clearly than the man she was supposed to marry. The wedding, she said, steering back to safer ground. Tell me about it. Beck accepted the redirect gracefully. The bride is the daughter of a business associate. She's in love with someone else, someone unsuitable. The groom is my cousin, equally uninterested. The marriage is purely strategic, combining territories, ending a potential conflict. Territories, Ebony repeated. You mean criminal territories? I mean business interests, Beck corrected, but his eyes acknowledged the truth. You'll be well compensated and protected. No one will touch you while you're working for me. And after the wedding, when the job is done? Beck's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. After the wedding, you'll go back to your life, with enough money to leave your fiancé if you choose, to start over however you want. The implication hung between them. Ebony took a sip of water, her mind calculating risks and rewards. I'll do it, but I have conditions. Name them. Full creative control over the event. No one interferes with my decisions about vendors or design. Second, I meet the bride and groom to understand what they want. Third, you're honest with me. If I'm going to be in danger, I deserve to know. Beck considered her for a long moment. Agreed, but I have a condition of my own. What? You'll meet with me weekly to discuss progress. Here at this restaurant, just the two of us. His gaze intensified. I want to know you're safe, that you're managing the stress. Ebony's heart rate picked up. This felt like more than a business arrangement, but she couldn't afford to acknowledge that. Fine. Weekly meetings. They shook hands across the table, and Ebony felt the same jolt of awareness she'd experienced at their first meeting. Beck's thumb brushed across her knuckles before he released her, the touch deliberate. Over the next 2 weeks, Ebony threw herself into planning the wedding while managing her regular workload and avoiding Marcus's increasingly critical comments about her body. The weekly meetings with Beck became the strangest part of her routine. He asked about her life, her dreams, her grandmother's Creole recipes. He listened when she talked about growing up in the South Side, about her mother who'd left when she was 7, about the books she loved. In return, he shared carefully measured pieces of himself. His family had immigrated when he was 12. His father built an empire through means both legal and illegal. When his father died, Beck inherited everything, including enemies who would kill him given the chance. You never wanted a normal life? Ebony asked one evening, watching him across the table. Normal is a myth, Beck replied. We all make choices based on the hands we're dealt. You could have been bitter, could have let the world's cruelty make you cruel. But you chose kindness, strength, that's remarkable. Ebony felt heat rise to her cheeks. You make me sound heroic. I'm just trying to survive. Survival is its own form of heroism. Beck's phone buzzed, and his expression hardened as he read the message. I need to handle something. Let me have my driver take you home. I can take the train. Please. The single word carried weight. It's late, and I'd prefer knowing you arrived safely. Ebony wanted to argue, but the concern in his eyes stopped her. Okay, thank you. The driver was a quiet man named Jin, who navigated Chicago's streets with practiced ease. As they pulled up to Ebony's modest apartment building, she saw Marcus's car parked outside. Her stomach sank. He rarely came by unannounced anymore. She found him waiting in the hallway, his expression stormy. Where have you been? Working, Ebony said truthfully. A big client. Why are you here? Marcus's eyes narrowed. Working this late? Ebony, I called your office. Veronica said you left at 6. I had a meeting with the client. Marcus, what's going on? What's going on is my fiancé is lying to me. He stepped closer and Ebony smelled alcohol on his breath. Who is he? It's a client meeting. Bullshit. Marcus's raised voice echoed in the hallway. You think I'm stupid? You've been different lately, distant. And now you're dressing nicer, doing your hair different. So I'm not allowed to take care of myself? Ebony's own temper flared. You've been telling me to lose weight, to try harder. And when I actually start feeling good about myself, you accuse me of cheating. Because you are. Why else would a woman like you suddenly have confidence? The words were meant to wound, and they did. Ebony's voice went cold. Get out. Ebony, get out. She pulled her engagement ring off her finger and dropped it into his palm. We're done. I'm done. Leave. Marcus stared at the ring, then at her, shock replacing anger. You're serious over one fight? Over 3 years of making me feel like I'm not enough, over every comment about my weight, every time you looked embarrassed to be seen with me, every promise you broke about our wedding. Ebony's voice didn't shake. I'm worth more than settling for someone who sees me as a burden. She went inside and locked the door, listening to Marcus's footsteps finally retreat. Then she slid down the wall and let herself cry. Not for him, but for the years she'd wasted convincing herself she didn't deserve better. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Are you all right? Jin said there was a man waiting for you. SW. Ebony stared at the message, something warm unfurling in her chest. She typed back, I'm okay now. Thank you for asking. The response came immediately. Call if you need anything. I mean that. Ebony saved the number under Baek Siwoo and fell asleep holding her phone, feeling for the first time in years that maybe she actually was worth more than she'd allowed herself to believe. The wedding planning consumed Ebony's life over the next month. She met the bride, Sunhae, a beautiful Korean woman in her mid-20s with sad eyes and a resignation that broke Ebony's heart. The groom, Baek's cousin Dae-young, was polite but clearly indifferent to the entire affair. I appreciate what you're doing, Sunhae told Ebony during their venue tour. Making it beautiful even though it's this. Every bride deserves a beautiful wedding, Ebony said gently, even if the reasons aren't traditional. Sunhae's eyes filled with tears. There's someone else, someone I love, but my father would never approve. Ebony thought of Marcus, of the relief she'd felt after ending that relationship. Sometimes the people we love aren't the people we're supposed to be with. Were you ever in love? Sunhae asked. I thought I was, Ebony admitted, but real love doesn't make you feel small. It doesn't ask you to change everything about yourself to be acceptable. The words echoed in her own mind during her next meeting with Baek. They sat in their usual private dining room, but the atmosphere felt charged with something unspoken. You called off your engagement, Baek said without preamble. Ebony met his gaze. How did you know? I pay attention. He poured her water, his movements deliberate. Was it because of our arrangement? It was because of me. Because I finally realized I was worth more than how he treated me. She paused. But yes, these weeks working with you, being around someone who actually listens when I speak, who doesn't look at me like I'm something to be fixed, it helped me see the difference. Baek's expression softened in a way she'd never seen. He was a fool to lose you. He didn't lose me. I left him. The distinction mattered to Ebony. Even better. Baek leaned forward, his voice lowering. Ebony, I need to tell you something. The wedding. There's been a complication. Her pulse quickened. What kind of complication? A rival organization isn't happy about the alliance. They've made threats, vague but concerning. His jaw tightened. I'm increasing security at all the venues, and I'm assigning a protection detail to you. To me? Why would they? Because they know you're important to me. The words hung in the air between them. Anyone can see how much I value your professional expertise, but they both knew he meant something more. Ebony's heart hammered. Baek, this is just a job. After the wedding you'll go back to your life. I know. His hand moved across the table, stopping just short of touching hers. But until then, you're under my protection. Non-negotiable. The protection detail turned out to be a quiet woman named Yuna, who followed Ebony everywhere like a well-dressed shadow. It was unsettling and strangely comforting. Ebony found herself working late at the office one evening, finalizing flower arrangements, when Yuna's phone buzzed. We need to leave, Yuna said immediately, her demeanor shifting to high alert. Now, what's happening? Someone's been asking questions about you. At your apartment building, at your local coffee shop. Yuna was already ushering Ebony toward the back exit. Mr. Baek wants you somewhere safe until we know who's asking. Ebony found herself in the back seat of a luxury car, being driven through Chicago's streets, while Yuna made rapid-fire calls in Korean. They pulled up to a high-rise in the Gold Coast, and Yuna guided her to a penthouse on the top floor. The door opened before they knocked. Beck stood there, and relief flashed across his features so quickly, Ebony almost missed it. "You're safe." "I'm confused," Ebony countered. "What's going on?" Beck dismissed Yuna with a nod and drew Ebony inside. The penthouse was stunning, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake, minimalist decor with Korean art pieces, everything expensive but understated. "Someone's been tracking your movements, taking photos. We're trying to identify them." "Photos?" Ebony's stomach dropped. "Why?" "To leverage against me." Beck's voice was hard. "They know you're working on the wedding. They may think you're more than that. But I'm not, aren't you?" Beck turned to face her fully, and the intensity in his gaze stole her breath. "Ebony, I know this started as a business arrangement, but these weeks, getting to know you, seeing your strength and brilliance and the way you move through the world with grace despite everything trying to diminish you." He stopped, seeming to struggle with words. "You've become important to me, more important than I intended." Ebony's mouth went dry. "Beck, we can't—" "I know. Your life, my life, they don't fit together. After the wedding, you'll go back to your world, and I'll stay in mine." He took a step closer. "But right now, tonight, I need you to stay here, where I know you're protected." Every rational thought told Ebony to refuse, but she looked at this dangerous, powerful man who somehow made her feel seen in a way no one else ever had, and she nodded. "Okay, just for tonight." Beck showed her to a guest room that was bigger than her entire apartment. "There's clothes in the closet that should fit. Bathroom through there. If you need anything—" "Thank you," Ebony interrupted, "for caring about my safety, even if it's just because I'm working for you." Beck's hand lifted as if to touch her face, then dropped. "It's not just because you're working for me, Ebony. I think you know that." He left before she could respond, and Ebony sat on the edge of the enormous bed, her heart racing. She was falling for him, for a man who lived in a world of violence and secrets, who could never offer her the normal life she'd always imagined. But as she looked around the beautiful room, felt the echo of his concern and care, she wondered if normal was even what she wanted anymore. Around 2 a.m., unable to sleep, Ebony wandered into the main living area. She found Beck standing at the windows, a glass of whiskey in his hand, staring out at the city lights. He turned when he heard her, his expression unguarded. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. "Too much on my mind." Ebony joined him at the window. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Anything. Why did you really choose me for this job, the truth?" Beck was quiet for a long moment. "I saw you at that charity gala. You were coordinating everything, solving problems, making sure everyone else's event was perfect. But I also saw how they treated you, your boss taking credit for your work, vendors dismissing you until you proved yourself, your fiancé barely acknowledging you when he arrived." His jaw clenched. "And through it all you were gracious, professional. You didn't let their disrespect diminish you. That's strength. That's what drew me to you. So it was pity," Ebony said, hating the way her voice wavered. "No." Beck set down his glass and turned to face her fully. "It was recognition. I know what it's like to be underestimated, to have people see only what they want to see. You and we're both fighting to be seen for who we really are." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and cupped her face in his hand. "I see you, Ebony Harris, all of you, and you're extraordinary." Ebony's breath caught as his thumb brushed across her cheek. She should step back. This was her boss, a criminal, someone from a completely different world, but his touch was gentle, reverent, and when she looked into his eyes, she saw herself reflected back, not as too much or not enough, but as exactly right. "This is complicated," she whispered. "Everything worth having is complicated." Beck's other hand found her waist, pulling her closer. "Tell me to stop." Ebony knew she should. Instead, she rose on her toes and kissed him. The kiss started gentle, tentative, both of them testing boundaries. Then Beck made a sound low in his throat and deepened it, his hand threading into her hair, his other arm wrapping around her to pull her against his body. Ebony melted into him, her hands gripping his shirt, feeling wanted in a way that had nothing to do with tolerating her and everything to do with desiring her. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Beck rested his forehead against hers. "I'm not good for you. My life. Let me decide what's good for me," Ebony interrupted. "I've spent too long letting other people make those decisions." Beck pulled her back into his arms, and they stood there by the windows as the city sparkled below them, both understanding that everything had changed, and neither willing to let go just yet. The weeks leading up to the wedding blurred together in a haze of planning details and stolen moments. Ebony and Beck maintained professional boundaries in public, but in private, they couldn't stay apart. Late-night dinners at the restaurant became discussions about everything and nothing. Her love of Toni Morrison novels, his complicated relationship with his late father, her dreams of opening her own event planning business, his hope that maybe someday he could leave this life behind. But reality had a way of crashing back in. 3 days before the wedding, Ebony was in the office when Veronica called her into a meeting. The expression on her boss's face sent warning bells ringing. "Ebony, we need to talk about your client," Veronica said, her voice tight. "Mr. Beck? What about him?" Veronica slid a folder across the desk. Inside were newspaper clippings, surveillance photos, reports about organized crime in Chicago's Korean community. And there, in multiple images, was Beck Si-woo. "Do you know who he really is?" Ebony's blood ran cold. "He's a businessman. He's a criminal, the head of one of Chicago's most dangerous organizations." Veronica's eyes were hard. "And you've been meeting with him alone multiple times a week. Ebony, what were you thinking?" "I was thinking about doing my job," Ebony said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Your job doesn't include becoming personally involved with clients. Especially not clients like this." Veronica pulled the folder back. "I'm taking over the Kim wedding. You're off the account effective immediately." "You can't do that." "I can, and I am. And Ebony," Veronica's expression almost looked sympathetic, "whatever you think is happening between you and Beck Si-woo, it's not real. Men like that don't end up with women like us. They use us and move on." The words hit like physical blows. Ebony left the office in a daze, her phone already ringing. Beck's name flashed on the screen. "They pulled you from the wedding," he said without greeting. "I just heard." "How did you—" Ebony stopped herself. Of course he knew. He always knew. "Veronica says you're dangerous, that I'm just a distraction." "I am dangerous," Beck said quietly. "She's right about that. But you're not a distraction, Ebony. You're—" He paused. "We need to talk. In person. Can you come to the restaurant?" Ebony should say no. Should walk away from this whole complicated mess. But she found herself agreeing, found herself in the back of Jin's car 20 minutes later, being driven to what had become her refuge. Beck was waiting in the private dining room, but his usual composure was fractured. "They're not wrong to pull you from the wedding. I should have let them do it weeks ago." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that being near me puts you in danger, real danger. The photos they took of you, they were from a rival organization. They wanted to know if you mattered to me." Beck's hands clenched into fists. "And you do, more than anything, which makes you a target." Ebony's heart pounded. "So what, we just stop? Pretend these weeks meant nothing?" "We stop before you get hurt, before someone uses you to get to me." Beck's voice was rough. "I care about you too much to let that happen. That's not your choice to make." Ebony stood, anger flooding through her. "I'm not some fragile thing that needs protecting. I grew up in the south side of Chicago. I know about danger. I know about risk. And I'm telling you that you're worth it." "I'm not worth your life." "What life?" Ebony's voice broke. "Going back to my tiny apartment, working for a boss who treats me like I'm invisible, settling for less than I deserve because that's what the world expects? You make me feel alive, Baek. You make me feel seen, and you're telling me to give that up out of fear." Baek crossed the room in 2 strides, gripping her shoulders. "I'm telling you to give it up because I love you, and love means keeping you safe, even if it means I lose you." The confession hung in the air between them. Ebony felt tears slide down her cheeks. "You love me? From the moment I saw you managing chaos with grace at that gala, from every conversation where you challenged me to be better, from the way you kiss me like I'm worth saving." Beck's own eyes were bright. "But my love isn't enough to change what I am, what my life is." "Then change it," Ebony said desperately. "Leave this life. Start over. We could—" "It's not that simple. There are obligations, debts, people depending on me. I can't just walk away." Beck released her, stepping back. "After the wedding, you're going to go back to your life. You're going to start that business you dream about. And you're going to forget about the Korean mobster who was stupid enough to fall in love with you. I could never forget you." Ebony's voice was barely a whisper. "You'll try, because I'm asking you to." Beck pulled an envelope from his jacket. "This is your payment plus extra. Enough to start over, to build the life you deserve. Ebony stared at the envelope like it was a snake. You're paying me off, that's what this is? I'm making sure you're taken care of. I don't want your money. Ebony shoved the envelope back at him. I want you. I want us. Can't you see that? I see it. Beck's voice cracked. But I also see the reality. We're from different worlds. I can't give you the safe, normal life. I don't want safe and normal. I want real. I want honest. I want someone who sees me for who I am, not who they want me to be. Ebony reached for him, but he stepped away. The rejection stung worse than any words. I'm sorry, Ebony. I never should have let this start. I never should have been selfish enough to pursue you when I knew it couldn't last. Beck's expression was closed off now. The vulnerable man from moments ago locked away behind his professional mask. Jin will take you home. Don't come to the wedding. It's better if we make a clean break. Beck, please. Goodbye, Ebony. He turned and walked out, leaving her standing alone in the room that had witnessed so many of their conversations, so many moments of connection. Ebony pressed her hand to her mouth to muffle the sob that escaped. Jin appeared in the doorway, his expression sympathetic, and guided her to the car. She cried the entire ride home, mourning not just the loss of Bayek, but the loss of the version of herself she'd discovered with him, the woman who believed she deserved extraordinary love. Her phone buzzed with a message. For a heartbeat, she hoped it was Bayek changing his mind. Instead, it was from Marcus. I heard about the breakup with the client. We could try again if you want. I miss you. Ebony deleted the message without responding. She might have lost Bayek, but she hadn't lost herself. That was something. The day of the wedding arrived. Ebony tried not to think about it, tried to focus on sending out resumes and planning her new business. But at 2 p.m., the exact time the ceremony was supposed to start, she found herself getting dressed in the outfit she'd planned weeks ago, calling a car, and heading to the church. She slipped into the back just as the ceremony began. Sun Hai looked beautiful, but heartbroken in her wedding gown. Daijung looked resigned, and at the front, standing as a witness, was Beck. He hadn't seen her enter. The minister began the ceremony. Ebony watched, her heart aching, as the ritual progressed toward the inevitable conclusion. Until, does anyone have any reason why these two should not be wed? The minister asked, the traditional question everyone expected to go unanswered. I do, said a voice from the side. A young man in a simple suit stood, his eyes on Sun Hai. I love her, and she loves me. Chaos erupted. Sun Hai burst into tears. Her father shouted in Korean. Daejung actually looked relieved. And through it all, Beck's gaze found Ebony in the back of the church, their eyes locked, and she saw everything he felt written on his face: love, regret, longing, despair. The ceremony dissolved. Guests whispered and pointed. Sun Hai ran to the young man who'd spoken, and Ebony watched them embrace, watched her choose love over obligation. It was beautiful and heartbreaking and everything she wanted for herself. She turned to leave, unable to watch anymore, when strong hands caught her arms. Beck had somehow crossed the church without her noticing. You came. I shouldn't have. Ebony tried to pull away, but he held firm. I'm glad you did. Beck's voice was rough. Because I need you to hear this. I was wrong. These past 3 days without you have been hell. I convinced myself I was protecting you, but really I was protecting myself. From risk, from the possibility of failing you, from having to choose between my obligations and my heart. Ebony's breath caught. What are you saying? I'm saying I choose you. I'm saying I'll find a way to leave this life, to build something new. I'm saying... Beck dropped to his knees right there in the church aisle. I'm saying I love you, Ebony Harris. And if you'll have me, flawed and dangerous and complicated as I am, I will spend the rest of my life proving that you were worth every risk. Tears streamed down Ebony's face. Around them, guests who'd remained to watch the drama were now watching a new one unfold. She didn't care. You really mean it? Every word. I'm done letting fear dictate my choices. You taught me that. Beck stood, cupping her face in his hands. What do you say? Will you take a chance on us? Ebony kissed him instead of answering, pouring everything she felt into it. Hope, fear, love, commitment. When they broke apart, she whispered, I love you too. And yes, 1,000 times yes. The church erupted in applause, the guests apparently delighted by this unexpected turn. Beck pulled Ebony against his side as Sun Hai and her young man approached. Thank you, Sun Hai said to both of them. for showing me that love is worth fighting for." Her father stood nearby, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, he nodded. Acceptance, if not blessing. The groom Dae-jung clapped Beck on the shoulder. "Guess we're both free now, cousin." "Guess so," Beck agreed, never taking his eyes off Ebony. As they left the church together, Ebony realized that this was just the beginning. There would be challenges ahead. Beck extricating himself from his organization, building a new life, navigating their different worlds. But for the first time in her life, she believed in a love story that didn't require her to be smaller, or different, or less than she was. She'd found someone who saw her, truly saw her, and loved what he saw. And that, Ebony thought as Bayek laced his fingers through hers, was worth every risk. The weeks following the failed wedding were simultaneously the most terrifying and liberating of Ebony's life. Beck had been serious about leaving his organization, but as he'd warned, it wasn't simple. There were meetings with his lieutenants, negotiations with rival organizations, careful dismantling of power structures that had taken years to build. Through it all, Ebony stood beside him. Not in the meetings themselves. Beck kept her protected from that world, but in the quiet moments after, when he'd arrive at her apartment exhausted and stressed, and she'd feed him her grandmother's gumbo and listen as he talked through his decisions. "You don't have to do this for me," she told him one evening as they sat on her small couch, his head in her lap, while she ran her fingers through his hair. "I know what I signed up for. I can handle being with you as you are. But I can't handle putting you at risk," Beck replied, his eyes closed. "Every day I'm in this life is another day someone might try to use you against me. I won't lose you to my own stubbornness." "Have you thought about what you'll do after?" Ebony asked. "When you're out?" Beck's lips curved into a small smile. "I've been thinking about restaurants, legitimate ones. I have capital to invest, knowledge of the industry from working with my family's establishments. It could work." "It will work," Ebony said with conviction, "because you're brilliant and strategic, and those skills translate to any field." He opened his eyes, gazing up at her with such tenderness it made her breath catch. "How did I get so lucky to find you?" "I ask myself the same thing." Ebony leaned down to kiss him softly. "Though some people might argue that falling in love with a mobster who's trying to go straight isn't exactly lucky, those people would be wrong." Beck sat up, pulling her into his lap. "You saved me, Ebony. From a life where I'd forgotten what it felt like to want something beyond power and survival, you reminded me I'm human." Their kisses deepened, hands exploring, breath mingling. They'd been taking things slow, building a foundation of trust and emotional intimacy before adding physical intimacy to the mix. But tonight felt different. Tonight felt like a turning point. "Stay with me," Ebony whispered against his lips. "Not just tonight, stay with me." Beck pulled back enough to search her eyes. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." Ebony stood, taking his hand and leading him to her bedroom. "I love you. I want you. And I'm done waiting for the perfect moment. This is our moment." What happened next was tender and passionate and perfect in its imperfection. Two people learning each other's bodies, discovering what brought pleasure, laughing when things were awkward, connecting on a level that went beyond physical. Beck touched her like she was precious, kissed every inch of her skin like he was memorizing it, whispered words in Korean she didn't understand, but felt in her soul. Afterward, they lay tangled together in her bed, sweaty and satisfied and utterly content. Beck traced patterns on her shoulder, his voice soft in the darkness. "I need to tell you something." Ebony tensed slightly. "That sounds ominous." "Not ominous, just important." He shifted so he could see her face. "I met with the heads of the other organizations today. We came to an agreement. I'm officially out in 2 weeks. Clean break, no retaliation, no debts." Relief flooded through Ebony so strongly she felt tears prick her eyes. 2 weeks? Really? Really. And I want you with me when I tell my family. I want them to understand that you're my future, that I'm building a new life and you're the center of it. Your family might not be thrilled about you dating a black woman who used to plan your fake wedding, Ebony pointed out. My family will learn to love you the way I do, Beck said firmly. And if they don't, that's their loss. You're not negotiable, Ebony. Not now, not ever. The meeting with Bayek's family the following week was tense but not hostile. His mother, an elegant woman in her 60s, studied Ebony with sharp eyes before finally nodding. You make him smile. He hasn't smiled like that since before his father died. I try, Ebony said, holding the woman's gaze. He makes me happy too. Good. Then you'll both be happy together. Beck's mother switched to Korean, speaking to her son. Ebony caught the word for love and saw Beck's expression soften. She says she's glad I found someone who challenges me, he translated, and that she hopes our children have your strength and my stubbornness. Ebony choked on her tea. Children? We've been together less than 3 months. Korean mothers are optimistic, Beck said with a grin, but his eyes held a question. Though someday, and would you want that? Children, marriage, the whole traditional path? With you? Yes. Ebony surprised herself with how quickly and confidently the answer came. Someday, when we're both ready, when you've built your new life and I've built my business. Speaking of your business, Beck pulled a folder from his briefcase. I have investors interested in your event planning company. Legitimate investors, I promise. People who've seen your work on the wedding and want to help you launch. Ebony stared at the documents, her vision blurring. You did this for me? I did this for us. Because your dreams matter as much as mine. Because I want to be your partner, not your savior or protector. Partners build together. She kissed him right there in front of his family, not caring about propriety or tradition. This was her future. This complicated, beautiful, impossible man who saw her for exactly who she was and loved her, not despite her differences but because of them. The final confrontation came sooner than expected. Ebony was at her new office space, a small but beautiful location in a diverse neighborhood. When Yuna burst through the door, her usual calm demeanor shattered. We need to go. Now. What's happening? Bike's at the restaurant. There's been a challenge to his exit agreement. They're trying to force him back in. Yuna was already pulling Ebony toward the door. He wants you away from this, but I think you should be there. He needs to see what he's fighting for. Ebony didn't hesitate. They raced across the city to the restaurant where she'd fallen in love with Bayek over Korean food and honest conversations. Inside, she found Bayek facing down a group of men she recognized from wedding security footage, leaders of rival organizations. The deal was clear, one of them was saying. You walk away, we get your territories, but you've been maintaining contacts, keeping your finger in operations. That's not walking away. I've been ensuring a smooth transition, Beck said, his voice calm but hard. Making sure my people are taken care of. That's not the same as staying involved. Your people should have been our concern the moment you left. Unless... The man's eyes narrowed. You're not really leaving. This is some kind of power play. I'm leaving because I found something more important than power. Beck's gaze found Ebony in the doorway, and his expression softened. Someone who showed me what it means to actually live instead of just survive. Ebony stepped forward before Yuna could stop her. He's telling the truth. He's choosing a life with me over everything he built. That's not a power play. That's love. The men turned to stare at her. She felt their assessment, their dismissal, their confusion that someone like Beck would choose someone like her. Let them be confused. She held her head high. Who is this? One of the men demanded. This is Ebony Harris, Beck said, moving to stand beside her. The woman I love. The woman I'm going to marry. The reason I'm leaving this life behind. He looked at Ebony with such intensity, she felt it like a physical touch.